Right, we're going to make this hook. Now I've made a version of it. It's this thing here. This is the coat hook. It's the black and white wall coat hook, or black and white wall hook, from a company called Anthropology. That's a G-I-E on the end. £18 each, apparently. Anyway, if you like that sort of thing, it's for you. But the client does, so I'm going to just model this. Now, always try to model on a flat surface when you start off with. And what we're going to do is create this thing in stages. We'll create this bit first. If I just select this, I'll show you what we've got in the outliner. We've got our component called the hook. Okay, that little symbol identifies it as a component. I've then got the intersection. That's this bit. This is a Boolean intersection from the solid editing tool, part of the SketchUp Pro tool set. This bit is the sort of thing you put, I don't know, a hat or something on, I guess. And then you've got this ball and brass ferrule at the top. And this thing here is the sweep, which is the hooky bit. Now, this looks a bit flatter, so I'll try and make it slightly flatter and slightly maybe a bit more angled. We'll see how it goes. And this thing's pointing forward as well. So, but I'll show you, and it's entirely up to you how you sort of fashion this shape, but just watch along and hopefully you'll be able to get some sort of idea. Now the height of this is about 200 mil, and I think it's about sort of 90 to 100 mil across. So we'll start off by putting some grid lines on it. Say draw onto a flat surface. So I'll take a grid line to the kind of midpoint here, and then I'll come out 50 in that direction and 50 in this direction. I'll come up a bit and I'll go 190. So that's sort of it. Now just make sure they all line up. See, that one's there is not sitting on that surface, so just make sure this one is. Again, that's not sitting on that surface either, so it's weird why these things are doing what they are doing. Just make sure those are there. I'll try from the back side, see whether that makes any difference. Make sure I'm hovering over the surface and make sure it locks onto the surface. I'm guessing it's turned through 90 degrees. And I'll take this one up 190, so I need to see those the other side as well, so that should be fine. So if I start at sort of this point and come back a bit and then come round to this point, I should be able to create a hook. So the first bit, however, has to really be vertical. Okay, that's kind of key to this. So I'll make the first bit about 30 mil, just vertical. It just makes my life a lot easier, and then I'll use the sort of curved tool, the what's it called, the arc tool, to then create a couple of arcs and try to get them to line up with this, and then they should form the hook sort of for you. It's slightly a bit too level, come in a bit and come down. So that's sort of that hook shape. It's probably a bit more like it. It is a bit more angular than I've drawn it, but it really doesn't matter. Okay, so that's drawn on that surface. Make sure it's flat, so it is, and then we can select this and copy it a known distance in a known direction. So in the red axis, I'll go 500. So I can just move it well away from that. So the next thing is to create the sweep. So basically we need to put a circle on the end of this and then send it round that path with the follow me tool. Circle, make sure I've got it in the blue direction. Hold my finger on the shift key so I can lock it out in that direction and aim at that end point. And then 2, enter for my radius. So with the path selected, I can just multiple select with the control key or the shift key, and so I've selected my path. I then use the follow me tool and I click on the circle, and that will send that round that path. Okay, so that's the sort of bent wire bit, and then I'll triple click, right click, and make a group. So this is the group. I could rename it if I wanted to, so I'll call this wire so I can identify it then. Right, so it's the ferrule thing now, see if I can get it right. I've tried a couple of times to get this, but I'm having trouble getting this shape sorted out. It worked fine when I made this, clearly, because there it is. I've set up a backboard like we saw earlier on. I've put some dimensions. I've got 30mm between there, that's for the ball bit. I've got about 13mm down for this ferrule bit, and I'm going to use the circle tool. So I'll make sure I've got 24 sides, that should be enough. Click at that point and draw a circle in there. So that's, I'm okay with my circle. I'll delete this side, I don't need that. And then I've got to try to get this ferrule thing sitting there. So I'll just sort of quickly rough out some shapes. It comes in, what does it do? It comes down and then sort of comes out a bit. At that point it's coming out a bit too far, go a bit further and come out a bit there and then take it back to that point. This is where I'm having trouble. It's not doesn't seem to want to close off. And I'll try and draw a line across there. That's worked. That's worked now, so that's fine. So E for erase there. If I then try to smooth out some of these things by putting a kind of a curve in there, I'll put a straight line down there, and I'll try to put a curve sort of in there as well. See if we can keep our curves. It's very important that you retain the curves on this, otherwise it won't work. Take that down, so this will do. Basically you've got to create a profile of that. It's not the same as the previous one, but it'll certainly be good enough for our purposes. That's the principle anyway. Spend as long as you want trying to map these things out. So I'm going to copy this on the red axis again. So the last one was 500mm. If I go, say, 300, don't know where that disappeared to, and just get rid of that little bit there, and then use the circle tool and hover over nothing, so I'll put on the floor as it were, and shift key to lock out. Don't click at this point, you just want to track down from that point on the blue axis and then just make any size circle. This is our path defined by the face, and we're now going to click on that to create that. So we've got some banding going on again. So if I just select that bit and plugins, weld, and start again. So select that first and then do that. That's slightly better. So again, it's not perfect. It looks like I don't know, golf ball light or something, but it's good enough for our needs for this. Just as a demo on how this thing is built. So if I triple click this and right click and reverse face so I can get the correct face facing forward, and then triple click, right click, make a group and call it ball, and then I can move this 200mm, and that's going to sit directly onto that. If I did have Fredo's scaling tool, I could do all sorts of different things to this, and I could pull this out and push this in again and make it look much better. That's a much better solution, but I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can. Okay, we're going to make this hat bit, or this bit anyway, on the hook. How we're going to do this is we're going to create, it's about 100mm wide I suppose, and it's sort of curved sort of tube with some rounded edges. And the best I could do with the basics of a modelling is something like that, which will be fine when we add some material to it. I'm going to make it probably make it in 2 halves, so I could make it in 1. I'll try and make it in 1. I made this one in 2, so let's see if I can make it in 1 as well. So I'm looking at a sort of a curve that's about 100mm. So I'll start off by just drawing a rectangle, 100, comma, I don't know, 50. So this is my 100mm. I'll pull this up just a little bit. So I'll put a curve on this. I'll use the arc tool, there, there, and then come out from the midpoint. That'll do, probably about 9 mil, that's fine. And I need to remember where the midpoint is, so if I mark up the midpoint on that, even though it's sort of highlighted by a snap point, and then I'll just take a copy of this and pull that out, 50 mil. It's always worthwhile just putting things in known distances, just in case you need to sort of move them back or copy something from something else to it. Now I need also to put a circle on this so that it's sort of 90 degrees to or perpendicular to sort of this point. Now remember, the curves are faceted, so if I create a circle, I'll hover it over this face, I'll give it about a 5 mil radius, and I'll select that circle and I'll make a copy of it from its midpoint. So let's just come down to the midpoint and snap there, and then pop that on that point. I need to rotate that through 90 degrees. So with the rotation tool, I'll set that to the sort of blue, the Z axis, finger on the shift key to hold that down, put it on that point, and then pick that end point there and then rotate it round just so it's kind of perpendicular. I don't know the exact dimension, but it's kind of alright for the purpose of this. And then select that as your path, use the follow me tool and send that along it. You notice that this thing is sort of slightly off sort of shape anyway, so it's not a perfect circle. We'll sort that out in a second. So the next thing I'm going to do is copy one of these. Now, do I align the axis to this face first? Probably do actually, so I'll use the axis tool and put it on that midpoint. Then line up to that point there and put the blue axis pointing up, so the green axis is coming through it. Then I should be able to make a copy of this on that green axis. 15 mil. Now what I want to also do is take another circle, so that's going to be on the blue axis, and put it sort of centrally on this. So I'm just going to put, if I can find that midpoint, I'm not sure whether I will be able to, hover over that for a bit and track up. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. Move that down to there and then move that 15. That's going to give you the midpoint of that. And then I can put the circle, shift key, hover over that point, track up, click and drag. All I want is a little loop to play with. Then I can delete that. And then I can select the path and then select follow me and then hit that, and that's going to create this sort of circular shape. Now it's missed out the top bit. That's really because of the number of facets on this. Struggling to cope. If I had more facets then it would be easier, but I can finish this off by just drawing a line across the top. That should seal that bit up, and it's kind of going to be good enough. Again, I mean these are going to be so small as far as the scheme of things go. If I was going to make this much more detailed, I'd make it much bigger and then scale it back down. So with that done, triple click that, right click, reverse faces, and soften smooth coplanar, so I get that nice smooth look, and that's okay. And then I can move this into that axis again, and it's 15 mils. That's popped it right on the end. Okay, so just remembering these dimensions does help. It's a little bit weird at that point, but let's not worry too much about that for the purposes of this. And I'll reset my axis, and then I can take this. What I should have done was made this a group, so I'll just reset, triple click that, right click, make group, keep the axis as it was, and then move it back 15, then reset the axis, and then I should be able to copy that from, if I take it from this point, I copy it to that point, we should be in luck. So if I try this out, move it from there to there, then that's allowed me to use this as a sort of guide for the rest of it. So delete that, that's fine. So then I'll select all this. If I explode this first and then turn this into a group, and we'll call that, whoops, hat thing. And then we can move this into place on that. I think I'll stretch it with the scale tool, just pull it up a bit through the middle, just sort of elongate it just a tad, and then move this in kind of from its sort of midpoint to somewhere like that. There you go, that's kind of alright. And then I can just move this off just a little bit. So we are nearly done. We've got this sort of weird looking thing at the top, we've got that sort of thing at the bottom, and we've just got this intersection thing to make. So to do that, we need to create a thing with a kink in it and some sort of circular thing. I might even try to make it sort of a bit more like that sort of shape, but it is kind of a just an oval really with a fancy image pressed into it. So again, the size of that, we are looking at approximately 50 mil, 43, 45 mil by about 36. Again, you can scale this sort of thing to suit. So if I make a box 50 by 50, that's the sort of thing I need to play with, and just pull it up. So I've got that. Then I'll take this face and just copy it off there. I don't care what the distance for the moment. I'm now going to put this sort of kink in. So that's going to be achieved. Have I done the right thing? Probably not. No, I'll draw the kink on this side and then flip it around the other way, so it's easier to draw on the surface, as I keep mentioning. So if I put one of these on the center and then say 10 that way, 10 that way, and get this sort of kink going, and go from there to there and sort of out, and then from say midpoint to there, let's put a line in. That little cross is, oh, it's appeared again now, control key, but it's hitting that dot there. What I want to do is measure it, so I'm trying to pull it away from something else. I'll use that point there. This is all guesswork, by the way, so midpoint to that point, and then try to get it in like that, and midpoint to there, and similarly there you go. So that's sort of the shape. It's a little bit rounder than it was before, but again, who's counting? So once I've got that, I can delete that, and it's this line that I want, so I can use the offset tool, F or this one, and then I can take that like so, and then just join that bit up and join that bit up, and then erase the rest. Now we can pull this down. Okay, so I've got these end bits that are nice and square. So if I wanted to scale it, I could. So I'll scale this through its midpoint. Just put my finger on the control key just to push it in a bit, like so. Makes it a bit sharper, and maybe pull it in this way as well. It's kind of doing the same sort of thing, and then I just pop these back out a bit. Do 15 and 15 there, double click that. Things getting in the way. Now all I need to do on this face is triple click that and make it a group, and just check my entity info for a solid group, and then I'll create my circle on this. So I'll just draw it from this point, take it about there, pull this, triple click that, make that a group. That's also a solid group, and just squish this down a bit, so scale, so I kind of squish that to that shape. And I'll move that in from sort of midpoint to the midpoint there. That's probably about right, and then I can move this through that like so. So I've got sort of that shape going on. And then, because these are both solid groups, I can use the solid tools. If I didn't have the Pro version, I couldn't use solid tools. There are some plugins that you could use. Alternatively, I could then explode both of these and right click and intersect faces with selection, and that would cut around this and form that shape that I wanted. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the solid tools. So with both of these selected, hit that intersection thing, and that creates this thing. It's also created some lines, and it kind of didn't like that bit, probably because they were too close to each other. Got little bristles poking out of those, but that's the sort of method that you would use. Whoops, I'm hiding me on that. To make that, maybe if I made that slightly smaller, it would be easier. It's maybe a bit too close to those points, so I'll just scale this down just a little bit more. If I control key, then I can sort of squeeze it together, and maybe just find that one and push it in just a little bit more, and select those both, intersect. There you go, that's better. So then I've made that sort of brackety thing, and that goes on to this bit. So I'll just move tool, I can rotate this around through 90 degrees, and then pick this up somewhere there and pop it somewhere on there, and then move that forward like so. So a little bit of juggling just to get it centered. There you go, 1 mil, that's all we're playing with. And there we have the hook. Slightly different, but again, it's different every single time you make it. I think if I'll end up putting this one on top of this. I'm kind of happy with that, the way that looks as opposed to that, and I prefer this one as well. So what I'll now do is just create a component out of this. Make component, call it hook 1, create. And then what I really should do with hook 1, so go into my components. I've got quite a few of these, but on hook 1, right click and save as, and then I can save this to my desktop or somewhere, and then open or create local collection and bring it into the other model. So if I just go save as and hit desktop, I'll go hook 1 SKP and save, and then I can come into this and make sure I'm on the hook layer, which I am. Components, hit the details button, open or create local collection, go to my desktop, OK, and find hook 1 in there amongst everything else, and then bring that in to the drawing like so. So that's the use of components as well. So open or create a local collection allows you to save things out. Components, you can't do that with groups, so that's what makes components so useful. So I'm just going to pick that up from, say, this point. We've got 3 of these on each one. I'm going to have to go to X-ray mode yet again, just to allow me to sort of offer that up, and then get out of X-ray mode. Pull this forward a bit, so make sure it's selected, and move it forward. And then we'll just do a bit of juggling with this to make sure it's on the face. So if I select that bit, track it back on the green axis to that face, and then it's a question or a case of lining this stuff up. Okay, but I'll pop one there at about 210, and I'll move this one 420. Oops. It would have been much better to position these accurately, but it's late. I'm getting tired. So I'll just, from that corner point, copy to that corner point, and then go 2x, enter, and we'll leave it at that for now. The next bit I'm going to cover will be the setting up of some scenes and some extra styles, so we can get some visual looks on this, and we can create section cuts and not, and then we'll be able to send all that into layout. So I'll be doing that next.